Canaanites? Canaanites? K-R-Knights? Cunt. History as that goes into Israel and Palestine. So 1700s, Abraham settles in the land of Israel, Canaan. Joseph is sold into slavery. His family joins him in Egypt. The Hebrews are enslaved by the Egyptians. Moses leads the Hebrews out of Egypt. The Hebrews arrive in Israel. Saul, better call Saul, there we go, is crowned the first king of Israel. David becomes the king of Israel. Israel is split into two nations, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom. Babylon, ruled by, yeah, I'm not even going to give that a go, but you guys probably know what that says, conquers Judah and destroys the temple and takes many Israelites captive. Cyrus, the king of Persia, conquers Babylonia. He allows the Jewish people to return home. Allows? I love the allows there. The second temple is constructed in Jerusalem. The Greeks, led by Alexander the Great, conquered Israel along with all of Persia and Egypt. Maccabean. Because it brings independence to the Jews. Rome, led by Pompey the Great, conquers Israel. Herod the Great King is made king of Israel of Rome. So this is all BCE. Now we're in CE. Jesus Christ is crucified. The Romans destroy the second temple and much of Jerusalem. The last of the Jewish rebels are defeated in Masada. The Jewish people revolt against the Roman rule. Hundreds of thousands of Jews are killed. The Mishnah, the first portion of Talmud, is written down. This is the oral traditions and the law of the Jewish people. The Jerusalem version of Talmud is a Talmud. There's no N in there. Talmud is completed. Another version, the Babylonian version, will be compiled around 500 BCE. The Persians captured Jerusalem after the siege of Jerusalem. Isn't this Byzantine or something? It's like, it sounds like it should have a T, like a TH in it. Okay, I know what I just fucking said, but isn't this why, like, it sounds like it should have a TH in it? Recaptures Jerusalem. Muslim forces capture Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock is built on the Temple Mount. The Seljuk Turks take control of Jerusalem and forbid Christians from entering the city. Christians in Europe embark on the First Crusade. Crusaders take control of Jerusalem. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt, captures Jerusalem. Jews are now allowed to enter the city. The Ottoman Empire conquers the Mamluk Sultanate and takes control of Israel. The magnificent rebuilds much of Jerusalem. The Ottoman Empire will rule until the 1900s, and now we're up to modern day Israel. This conflict has been going on for a really long time, particularly over the land. That is true, but when we're looking at the Israel-Palestine conflict, I think looking at the modern day kind of Israel, the last 100 years, is completely fine and does inform it the most, in my opinion. I'm not a historian. I did modern history in high school. That's about it. Modern day Israel, 1914, World War I begins. 1917, the Ottoman Empire is defeated by the British. 1920, the British take over Israel as a part of the Palestine Mandate. 1939, World War II begins. During the war, 6 million Jewish people will be killed by Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany in the Holocaust. 1945, World War II comes to an end. 1948, the independent country of Israel is declared. The first prime minister of Israel is David Ben-Gurion. Israel is attacked by a coalition of Arab countries, including Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. In the first Arab-Israeli war, the Israelis win the war. Israeli Assembly, Nest, is it just Nest? Is it just like a silent K? Is held. Israel becomes a member of the United Nations, takes control of the Suez Canal. Six-Day War is fought between Israel and a group of Arab nations, including Egypt. The Six-Day War is fought between Israelis since 1967, we're up to, between Israel and a group of Arab nations, including Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. Israel won the war and took control of the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. 1969, nice. Golda Meir is elected prime minister. She was the first woman prime minister of Israel. How progressive. 1973, the Yom Kippur War takes place when Egypt and Syria attack Israel on the Jewish Holy Land of Yom Kippur. Holy Day of Yom Kippur. Dude, I can't fucking read for shit. I'm gonna zoom in. Israel was able to push back the Egyptian army. Israel signs a peace treaty with Egypt at Camp David in the United States in 1979. 1980, the shekel becomes the official currency of Israel, replacing the Israeli IRA. In 1991, the Gulf War occurs. Israel is hit by Scud missiles from Iraq. 2009, Benjamin Netanyahu. Dude, I've heard this name pronounced so many fucking times and I still do it wrong. Netanyahu. There we go. Selected prime minister. Brief overview of the history of Israel. The land, which is today the country of Israel, has been sacred to the Jewish people for thousands of years. Today, the land is also sacred to other religions such as Christianity. In 2000 BC, the Jewish patriarch Abraham was promised the land of Israel by God. Abraham's descendant became the Jewish people. The kingdom of Israel emerged around 1000 BC and was ruled by great kings such as King David and Solomon. Over the next 1000 plus years, various empires would take control of the land. These included the Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Greek, Roman, and Byzantine empires. In the 7th century, the land was taken over by the Muslims. Later, the land would change hands a few times until the Ottoman Empire took control in 1517. The Ottoman Empire ruled until the 1900s. During the rule of the Arabs in the Ottoman Empire, the Jewish nation had dispersed throughout the world. Many millions lived in European countries. During World War II, Nazi Germany had hoped to exterminate the Jewish people through the Holocaust. Millions of Jewish people were executed and killed in concentration camps. At the end of World War II, the United Nations divided up Israel between Arab and Jewish states. The Arab rejected this division. On May 14, 1948, the Jewish people in the area proclaimed independence, naming their country Israel. Egypt, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon immediately attacked. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War began. After a year of fighting, a ceasefire was declared and temporary borders were established. Hostilities continued between the Arabs and the Israelis in a series of wars, including the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Today, the tension and hostility still exists between the two, evidently. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. So yes, this conflict does, sort of stretch across thousands of years, or at least 1,000 years. But again, in terms of the modern day conflict, we are looking at the most recent last 100 years. Another little bit of a background, and then we can get stuck into watching some videos so I don't have to read out loud as much. What are the roots of the Israel-Palestine conflict? The horrific events over the last week are the culmination of a decades-long clash in the disputed region of the Middle East. As with almost everything to do with this conflict, it depends on who you are. Some will begin with the Romans. Others will start with the late 19th century Jewish migration to what was then the Ottoman Empire to escape the pogroms and other persecution in Eastern Europe and the rise of Zionism. Or the Balfour Declaration by the British government in 1917 in support of a national home and the ensuing conflicts with Arab communities there. But the starting point for many people is the United Nations vote in 1947 to petition the land in the British Mandate of Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab, following the destruction of much of European Jewry in the Holocaust. Neither the Palestinians nor the neighboring Arab countries accept the founding of modern Israel. Fighting between Jewish armed groups, some of which the British regarded as terrorist organizations, and the Palestinians escalated until the armies of Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, and Syria invaded after Israel declared independence in May 1948. The UN has their fucking dick in their hand for like their entire fucking existence. I think it's good that they established some international standards, and I think it's good that we can point to these. The thing is, they have no legal binding on countries, even fucking state parties. Like, I mean, you can take them to court and like to the international court and stuff. And there was like that international warrant that was out for Putin's arrest because of the war crimes that he was committing. If he just doesn't go to any of those countries, like, what are they gonna fucking do? What are they gonna fucking do? Israel's new army gaining ground, an armistice agreement in 1949 saw new de facto borders that gave the fledgling Jewish state considerably more territory than it was awarded under the UN partition plan. What happened to the Palestinians who were living there? About 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or fled. About 85% of the Arab population of the territory captured by Israel were never allowed to return. Palestinians called the exodus and eradication of much of their society inside Israel and the Nakba, or catastrophe, and it remains the traumatic event at the heart of their modern society. So we're going to look at a documentary. Again, this is not a recent, well, it is recent in the sense that it's in the last year. It's not like from the last week, and it's not being used as like a point of propaganda. This has been out for a little bit. Arabs who remain in Israel as citizens were subject to official discrimination. They were placed under military rule for nearly 2 decades, which deprived them of many basic civil rights. Much of their land was expropriated, and Arab-Israeli communities were deliberately kept poor and underfunded. What is the Palestine Liberation Organization? In 1964, a coalition of Palestinian groups founded the Palestine Liberation Organization under the leadership of Yasser Arafat to pursue armed struggle and establish an Arab state in a place of Israel. PLO drew international attention to its cause with high-profile attacks and hijacking. How did the occupied Palestinian territories become occupied? In 1967, Israel launched what it said was a preemptive defensive war against Jordan, Egypt, and Syria as they appeared to be preparing to invade. The attack caught Arab governments by surprise and saw Israel achieve rapid victories, including seizing Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the Golan Heights from Syria, and the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan. The Six-Day War was a spectacular military success for Israel. Its capture of all of Jerusalem and newly acquired control over biblical lands called Judea and Samaria in Israel opened the way to the construction of Jewish settlements in the West Bank, which became central to the conflict. Israel placed the Arab population of the West Bank under military rule, which is enforced to this day. When did Hamas enter the picture? The PLO was a generally secular organization modeled on the left-wing guerrilla movements of the time, although most of its supporters were Muslim. Islamist groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood had previously avoided armed conflict and were largely dedicated to working for a more religious society, but that position shifted under the leadership of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, a charismatic quadriplegic living in Gaza. Interesting. I don't know why the quadriplegic bit just threw me, but it did a little bit. Who helped found several Islamist organizations in Gaza, including Majma al-Islamiyah, which won support by establishing a network of social services, including schools, clinics, and a library. Shortly after the outbreak of the first Intifada, these words are really fucking with me, man. Charismatic quadriplegic bars, dude. That's so fucked up. Nothing else to say, but the war is bad. Death is bad. Defending your country by killing others is also just as bad. Well, that's a really good fucking take. I think just about everybody fucking agrees with you. Like, wasn't there a soccer team that came out and made a statement about the Israel-Palestine conflict, and they're like, we condemn violence. We condemn war. Okay, assholes, who fucking asked? That is like the most fucking lukewarm, basic bitch ass fucking take. Nobody fucking agrees with war. Nobody fucking agrees with violence. But what we're looking at is an active war and active violence. So to sit here and be like, I don't agree with war. I don't agree with violence. Yeah, we fucking get it. Everybody is on the same fucking page about that. But the thing is, bruh, it's just like, I don't want to have a take, so but I want to contribute to the conversation, so here's my take. But I don't want people to come and say that I'm a bad guy, or say that I'm a terrorist, or say that I'm like, you know, an apartheid supporter. Like, I don't want to cop any flack, so I'm just gonna sit in the middle of the road and say, you know, I'm against war. Murder is bad. Killing is bad. Yes. Yes, everybody fucking agrees with that. It's just how people conveniently leave out certain aspects of the conflict to support their side. Or, you know, yeah, again, just having a middle of the road take like that. It's like, I get it. I'm like the biggest fucking fence sitter out there. I consider the fence constantly. I'm not even picking a side in all of this conflict. But I'm gonna go a little bit further than saying war is bad. Murder is bad. Killing is bad. Violence is bad. Cool. Good job. You have the take of a 4th grader. And that's not just directly targeting you, Count Off. I'm just saying that, like, that kind of sentiment is just completely fucking, it's such a nothing statement. Like, you might as well have just said nothing in chat. Shortly after the outbreak of the first Intifada, Yassin used support for the Majma al-Islamiyah as the foundation of the formation of Hamas in 1987 in alliance with other Islamists. Israel has always denied encouraging the rise of Islamist movement in Gaza, but it saw the groups as a way of undermining support for the PLO and recognized Majma al-Islamiyah as a charity, allowing it to operate freely and build support. Israel also approved the creation of the Islamic University of Gaza and became a breeding ground of support for Hamas. What was the first Intifada? There's a problem with shitting on the UN because it's made about governments. That means the governments are shit, and then turn means that we're shit, so we might as well cut to the chase and say that we're shit. No. There's one step that we need to go before that, Sober, which is just that the government is shit. True. The UN is shit. True. That means politicians are shit. True. Israel regarded the Palestinian population under its control as largely quiescent, even as it went on expanding Jewish settlements in Gaza and the West Bank and extrapolating Arab land. Palestinians were also treated as cheap source of largely manual labor inside Israel. The illusion was shattered in 1987 as young Palestinians rose up. The uprising was marked by mass stone throwing. The Israeli army responded with large-scale arrests and collective punishments. The Intifada is largely recognized as a success for the Palestinians, helping to solidify their identity independently of neighboring Arab states and forcing Israel into negotiations. It also strengthened Arafat's hand to make compromise with Israel, including adopting the principle of a two-state solution. What happened to the peace process? As the first Intifada wound down in 1993, the Oslo peace process started with secret talks between Israel and the PLO. Israel's then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed an agreement with Arafat aimed at fulfilling the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination, although Rabin did not accept the principle of a Palestinian state. The Oslo Accords established the Palestinian National Authority, granting limited self-governance over patches of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Further negotiations were also intended to resolve issues such as the status of Jerusalem, the future of the Israeli settlements, and the right of return for the millions of Palestinians still classified as refugees after their forebears were never permitted to return to their homes. Some prominent Palestinians regarded the Accords as a form of surrender, while right-wing Israeli opposed the giving up of settlements or territory. Among Israelis, the political charge against Oslo was led by future Prime Minister Ariel Sharon and Benjamin Netanyahu, who fronted rallies rallies, which Rabin was portrayed as a Nazi. Rabin's widow blamed the two men for her husband's assassination by ultra-nationalist Israeli in 1995, what caused the Second Intifada. Giant issue between Israel versus Palestine came after World War I, where Britain was on control of the land. Made a promise to both Israel and Palestine: if you support us, we'll give you the land. This promise was made to both, from research I gathered. Classic fucking Britain fucking everything. Can't say I'm particularly surprised. Israel did a bit of Taliban with Hamas. They encouraged/supported them and then went around to bite them in the ass. Yep, a little bit. Hamas fucked everything. Tastes really good. Might as well have a go. Hummus is pretty good. It was promised like 4 different parties from what I recall, not just the Palestinians and Israelis. Oh my god, Britain is a whore. What the fuck? England. Hello, governor. We bring crumpets and fuck-ups. And licenses for licenses. I read this yesterday and today I didn't see 4. What caused the Second Intifada? Peace negotiations sputtered along until the failure of Bill Clinton's attempts to broker a final deal at Camp David in 2000, which contributed to the outbreak of the Second Intifada. The uprising was markedly different from the First Intifada because of the widespread suicide bombings against Israeli civilians launched by Hamas and other groups, and the scale of the Israeli military retaliation. By the time the uprising ended in 2005, more than 3,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis were dead. The political ramifications of the Intifada were significant. It led to a hardening of attitudes among ordinary Israelis and the construction of the West Bank barrier. But it also prompted then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to say that Israel could not go on occupying the Palestinians' territory, although he did not say that the alternative was an independent Palestinian state. Is Gaza still occupied? Cool, blimey, I just shagged a fit bird. That's so British. Britain, I'm playing all sides so I always win. Expat, the hypocrisy of the West is disgusting. Would you like to elaborate on that point for a little bit? Point proven for me is people are for being bitches and being like, oh, this cheeseburger is too tasty. I guess I'll tolerate tyranny. What? Huh? What does that mean? Britain beta tested this in Ireland? God. Is Gaza still occupied? One consequence of the Second Intifada was Sharon's decision to disengage from the Palestinians beginning in 2005 with the closing of Israeli settlements in Gaza and parts of the northern West Bank. It is not clear how much further Sharon would have gone with this policy, as he had a stroke and went into a coma the following year. The status of Gaza has, since the disengagement, remains undisputed. Israel says it is no longer occupied. The United Nations says otherwise because Israel's continued control of the airspace and territorial waters and also access into the territory along with Egypt. Israel has also blockaded the enclave since Hamas came into power in 2006. In addition, many Palestinians in Gaza do not see themselves as a separate entity from the rest of the territories in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and so argue as a whole they remain occupied. Why does Hamas control Gaza? Hamas won the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections in part because of a backlash against the corruption and political stagnation of the ruling Fatah party. The Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was appointed prime minister. Israel began arresting Hamas members of the Palestinian parliament and imposed sanctions against Gaza. They'll stand with Israeli occupation while supporting Ukraine against the Russian invasion. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Palestine has long been marginalized and the West is turning a blind eye. Probably be banned by Twitch if he explained, but I agree. I hear you. If I was the pres of the USA, I wouldn't even bother with this war between the two. She's been going on, has been happening between the two longer than the US was made in 1942. Again, a religious war between the Jews and Muslims, going back before Christ, and modern Christians supporting the Jews. Yeah, but again, the modern conflict that we're seeing between Palestinians and the Jews that we have currently, that's like, we're looking at the last 100 years for that, okay? So I appreciate that this is a longer history than that. I just think repeating it a million fucking times is like just kind of pointless. And I think it makes it look like this, like, it is like a big fucking thing, but like, I kind of want to focus on the details of like what's going on right now, you know what I mean? Deteriorating relations between Hamas and Fatah resulted in violence. An agreement to form a national unity government fell apart, and Hamas led an armed takeover of Gaza, while Fatah continued to control the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. There have been no elections since. Hamas has continued to attack Israel from Gaza, mostly using rockets until the latest ground incursion. Israel has maintained a tight blockade of the territory, which has contributed to deteriorating living conditions and deepening poverty. So where are we now? Although Western governments still pay lip service to the two-state solution, there has been no progress towards an agreement under Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who repeatedly said that he'll never accept a Palestinian state. His present government includes far-right parties that openly advocate the annexation of all or part of the West Bank to Israel and the continued governance of the Palestinians without full rights or the vote. Israel and foreign human rights groups say that Israel has increasingly carved out a form of apartheid in occupied territories. Holden Kaffer is the answer. Nice call. Very good. Hamas killing of more than 1,200 Israelis now moves the conflict into uncharted territory. So that's where we're at now, is the 2023 conflict that has been happening in the last week. Hamas started fire on multiple years since 2007 to current. Surprisingly, the Oslo Accord worked pretty well for its time. Interesting. Feels like the literal and metaphorical divide between Hamas, Gaza, and the further West Bank is lost on a lot of people. I learned a lot of things I didn't know before. Me too. This has been a very educational experience.